Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to week 4 live session 2. If you missed the first live session of week 4, please definitely go back and review the recording. We went over pretty much everything that you need to do for week 4. I did a little review. We looked at the week 4 assignment, discussion 4, and also I did a demo for how to approach the assignment 4, kind of continuing from week 3, and that was your design brief. So definitely review that. That will give you some ideas of how to go forward and kind of give you a better idea of what is expected for your final project. Don't forget that also your integration quiz will be due. That's the career integration quiz. That is just kind of a reflection quiz. Also, your quiz for assessment 4 is also due before Saturday by midnight. And I cannot accept any late work past the Saturday by midnight deadline because of grades that need to be submitted by a certain time. So that is super important. So if you have late work that you still need to turn in from week 3, excluding discussions, get that in for some points. It all kind of adds up. So, all right. So, this is going to be kind of a quick review lecture. It probably will be a shorter lecture because, like I said, we went through a lot of information yesterday. So this will be, welcome Lily, we got somebody coming in here. So this will be kind of a shorter session of just more of a review. How are you, Lily? I'm still drinking my coffee this morning. Actually, it's afternoon here, but I'm trying to stay awake here. Oh, I just saw your message there. My chat message box was being covered. Good. I was just kind of reviewing a few things. This is going to be more of a review, a shorter session here, so you guys can get started on your work. Tired again too? Yeah. I was out late last night, so I was kind of recovering, just out with some friends, but it was fun. But yeah, we're just talking about review. You guys will be doing your assessment, assessment 4. It was all good fun. So if you have any questions by the end of this, let me know. We talked about a few things this entire 4 weeks of this class. We talked about photo genres, which included photojournalism, which are like more, this is kind of what's in, if you get into photography, these are the genres that you can get into. You can specialize in too. So photojournalism is the news, kind of magazine style photography, captures events, people and places, photos are not manipulated. Oh my. You're working on your creative brief until about 4:30. Wow. Can't wait to see it. I'm getting into it. Hi, Marla. Welcome. Like I said, I'm just doing a little review here. This might be a shorter session here. So good morning. Drinking my coffee. Advertising is another genre. I mean, photos for print, advertising, product specific, usually very heavily manipulated. You guys are doing that this week. For your advertisements, whether it be your web ad or your poster or your postcard. You guys are working on that in that genre for this week. Portraiture, there's people out there who make a lot of money on just taking pictures of people, weddings, photography studio, portraits, headshots, etc. There's landscape photography, think Ansel Adams, pictures of the world, nature, places, and spaces. And then you have your still life, one of the oldest forms of photography. Photographic version of the famous fruit in a bowl painting every day and inanimate objects. Still lifes are another genre of photography. Street photography, we went into detail about that too. Photos of people or any subjects in candid situations in public, people walking down the street, on the subway, getting that glimpse into the world of wherever you're at, and hopefully capturing a moment. Abstract photography, you guys worked a little bit with this, photographing an object, pattern, or shape in a way that avoids obvious recognition of the object. I think that's one of my favorite ones. just because you can do so many things with that. You can use abstract photography in advertising as well. It just makes your ads look so much different, pulls the eye in, and can really be thought-provoking. We talked about contrast in photography. You guys played around with contrast in some of your assignments, and hopefully you guys really kind of had fun with that, and to just play around with the highs and the lows within a photograph and how to obtain that. So you can really kind of produce very dramatic and interesting images that add emotion to a photograph. You know, contrast can help catch the eye of the viewer and can be used as a focal point or to draw the eye. And a high contrast image will exhibit a full range of tones from black to white, utilizing dark shadows and very bright highlight areas. A low contrast image, however, will show very little difference between the darkest and the light. So it'll be kind of neutral, kind of grays that you would have. Exposure, hopefully you guys are playing around with your exposure if you have a camera that allows you to go into manual mode. And even if you don't and you take it into Lightroom, you can, or Photoshop, you can definitely play around with that as well. It's always good to kind of play around with the initial at first when you're actually taking the photograph. So to get it the best possible quality image, it's always good to capture it in that way first off if you can. But it's one of the most important aspects of a photograph. That light affects is exposure, and is the amount of light reaching the camera's image sensor and used to create the image. So in the camera, this can be controlled using the shutter speed and aperture settings. But really what you're attempting to control is the amount of light that is being utilized by the camera to create the image. If there's not enough light, you can only do so much to adjust for that. Your image will be primarily underexposed to dark. If there's too much light, your image can be primarily overexposed to bright. So you'll notice the details within the highlighted areas of your photo will be blown out, and the same as the darker areas. So you really want to kind of make sure that's balanced, and exposure is very important in that. You guys paid attention with composition with one of your projects that you worked on, and hopefully you will definitely keep that in mind when you're doing your photo shoot for this week. And it's basically very relevant not just to photography but to design as well. So it's the pleasing arrangements of elements within a scene, the main subject, the foreground and background, and supporting subjects. So we talked about creating a specific point of interest to focus on. You know, focal point, textures, patterns, and lines can help draw the eye in and make photos more interesting. Use them diagonally to add drama to a photo. Fill the frame, zoom in, crop out what you do not need to add to the photo. So all great things to think about when you're taking photos for this final project. Use movement in your photos, either through the subject or in the background. You know, if you have something that is, you know, your ad calls for something that would use this type of a style. If you're at night and, you know, doing some night shots, you can definitely slow down your shutter speed, put your camera on a tripod, and have some fun with, I mean, even, I don't know if you guys have ever tried this, and I have, in a class I taught on ground in Tampa, I taught a digital photography class, but it was actually in class. So I was able to have the students come in, and during a low light, there was like night class, come in with sparklers and do the whole low, slow shutter speed, where you're kind of drawing out your name or like doing some crazy designs with the sparklers, you know, creating that effect. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, you can do all kinds of really neat things, you know, showing movement, not just with lights, but with people, animals, if it calls for that. Pay attention to what is going on around, and especially behind your subject. So no photo bombing, right? There's a little dog here. I know we showed this before. This photo cracks me up. Make sure it's not distracting and it adds to the image. Shift your focus or angle if you need to. So, you know, we've all had those photo bombing moments, I'm sure, had something behind your head that may not look like it's supposed to be there. You know, like you have you have a perfect picture of you and whoever, or just yourself, and you have this weird thing behind your head that looks like it makes like a big hat, or it makes you look like you have weird looking hair. So if you see or notice that, really kind of pay attention to the background of where you're shooting so you can shift, you know, either way. And if dog's pooping in the scene, here. Use colors, bright colors, especially primary colors, attract the eye. If you're going for a more, you know, color photo, kind of if you're not doing black and white, you're going for the color photo. You know, pay attention to that. Symmetry also in an image is pleasing to the viewer, especially with landscapes. And this is a great example that was shown to you guys before, because you're not only seeing this structure here, but it's reflected nicely. I mean, almost perfectly. It's like completely reflected within the water there. So it's making it more symmetrical by focusing, balancing it out within the frame is making it stronger in that regards. And then you can also frame your subject. You guys played around with this, and hopefully you kind of made you more aware of different techniques that you can do, and something that you can play around with for your final project, possibly, if it works for it. So you can frame your subject to help draw attention to it in a different way. Here's a peer kind of framing the sunset experiment. Try breaking the rules. You never know what you'll come up with, you know. And, you know, as designers, we always say we don't have rules, but we actually do have rules, but you have to know the rules in order to know when to break them too, as far as photography as well. Rule of thirds. We talked about this as well. One of the most common theories taught in photography is the theory of breaking an image down into thirds, both horizontally and vertically, creating four important intersecting points of interest. And, you know, there are all factual studies that have shown that by placing points of interest in your photo at these intersecting points will naturally draw the eye to them. So we looked at some of those examples as well. We'll see some here. Different camera angles. Don't forget, you know, try different camera angles through your photo shoots for this week. Try eye level, try high angle, low angle, and see kind of what the overall look is, and if it improves the message, or maybe it doesn't, you know, kind of experiment a little bit. Framing as well, you know, that might not be something that you're interested for this project, but, you know, kind of experiment more with this for maybe different upcoming projects that could definitely elevate your concept, maybe for different ads that you're going to be doing in the future, not just in school, but, you know, when you first land that job, you can definitely play around with that. You don't forget, you know, you have lighting that you can play around with as well if you're doing, especially if you have a model within your photo shoot and you have control over the lighting. We talked about front lighting and side lighting. We talked about back lighting and above and below lighting, and just the effects that they, you know, the little connotations that come about, you know, with the different lighting. You know, what does it do to the actual look of the photograph? Dramatic lighting, portrait lighting, we talked about that as well, and just the natural lighting. I think this is one of the things that you should take advantage of, not using your flash and just using the ambient light outside. You know, even if you're inside by the window, taking natural lighting pictures can always be some of the best ways to capture a great photo. Knowing when to go outside, what time frame, when it's not as contrasted out, the lighting is diffused by maybe some clouds. If you're inside and you're kind of setting up a scene, I know most of you guys don't have access to the lighting, you know, professional lighting that is shown here, but, you know, you might have some lamps that are kind of, you know, helpful to move around and play around with. Your subject with the backlighting, low intensity, you have your fill lighting. So there's ways around it if you don't have the professional studio lighting. And we talked about which one of these lights kind of what effect they have on a subject if you're kind of posing them. So the key light is the principal source of light hitting your subject. It gives the viewer the basic shape of the object. because during the day we can see the principal light source, the sun, coming from above. It's a good idea to place the key light above to one side of the camera's point of view. You can see the example there with the woman. The backlight is the illumination from behind the subject, opposite from the camera. It distinguishes the subject from the shadow and further emphasizes the outline of the subject. And then you have the fill light. We talked about that too. Will generally be diffused light used to reduce shadow or contrast range and give a natural look to the subject. We talked about the different styles of lighting, so Rembrandt lighting. So you have that triangle under the eye, and this is how to get that reflector. We have the glamour lighting, you guys. So if your ad calls for this and you have your model there, you know, these are the techniques that you need to experiment with. Side or split lighting. Just reviewing here, a silhouette. And don't forget, take your photos into Lightroom. See what you can do to make them a better quality image. If you're, you know, even if you're just kind of touching it up a little bit as far as the overall exposure, using Lightroom can definitely create, you know, can elevate your image further if it needs to be. And then Photoshop obviously is a great software to manipulate your photos, touch-ups. We went over how to use the rubber stamp tool, the magic wand tool, and all the other type of selection tools to help you, you know, either manipulate the photo so that you're clearing it up, you're making those color changes to it if need be, and then also compositing your images. If that's something that you believe would be a great technique for your ad, you can composite your images if you think it's, you know, appropriate for your actual ad concept. And even if you might just want to play around with it, kind of do different concepts where you're maybe you choose 3 different images to kind of play around with. So maybe you're, for one image, you're playing around with the angles. The other image, you're kind of playing around with the lighting. And then the third image, maybe you're playing around with compositing it with different imagery. And you can use your original image and composite images that you find online, say on pixabay.com, the free high-res copyright images. You can blend them together. You don't necessarily have to always just use your photographs. So if you say, for instance, if you took a picture of a scene with a model in it and you didn't like the background and you wanted to kind of take the background out and put a new background in, then you would use your selection tools and composite a new background in it. And this background, either you could take, you know, if you have a better background, or you can find, you know, a better background through pixabay.com. But as long as you have an original photo in there of yours, I'm fine with you guys compositing, you know, other images into that if need be for texture purposes or backgrounds or just for the overall concept, you know, within your image. Because there's, and I'm going to show you a website here. There's reasons why you would do that. And let me show you real quick. I found this website talking about, and I'll post this in, I won't read through all this, but this is how to use photography and advertising to engage and inspire your audience. So I thought this is kind of cool because they show some well-known brand advertisements here with some photo shoots that, you know, obviously this one is Smirnoff in Sorbet. But the composited images, I think this one was probably definitely set up with the smoke. Almost looks like a composite image. But there was one in here. Let me show you here real quick. Oh, here's a composited one. Let me zoom out so you can see the whole thing. So, you know, you can do something like this where you're compositing, you're taking the picture of the man maybe, and then you're compositing different backgrounds in to create a more creative concept. Let me see, I think there's another one in here. Oh, this one. So this one is kind of showing this man here. What is this one about here? Concept design, land airlines. So they are attempted to create an inviting tone that spoke of friendliness and the beautiful places the airline served. Okay, and then this, they're saying this one's more creepy than friendly because the guy, I guess the guy looks kind of creepy. But what I wanted to show you guys was the composited part of this where he's holding, you know, holding the landscape of and nobody. Yep. So yeah, you have to kind of watch what your subject kind of looks like in the image. You don't want to, this is kind of funny. Did you guys ever see this? Stock photography with, what's his name? Oh, what's the actor's name here? I'm going to find it in here. Vince Vaughn. And the joke is that stock photography all kind of looks the same, has a generic bland look to it. So that's Vince Vaughn. He's an actor. So this actual piece of stock photography was actually created for a promotional piece for a film that intentionally mocked common stock photo perceptions. And it is unfortunately representative of many advertising stock photos that use little creativity and even less emotional appeal. Mm-hmm. He has put on weight. But this is kind of funny because if you worked in an advertising agency, you kind of get the kind of the play on this because, you know, they all kind of look the same and have that generic look to them. This is an Apple ad here. Different photography. But anyway, I just wanted to show you some of those composited ads. I think those are kind of cool. Let's see here. Here's techniques. I want to post this for you guys too because I think these all have really cool stories with them. 6 commercial photographers share their techniques and their stories. So when you go in here, you can meet the photographer and read more about kind of the story behind the image here and their techniques behind it. So this one, for instance, has its own little story here and kind of his background. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Of like different shots that he took. And his style. So you can kind of see where, oh, I love this style too. You can kind of see kind of how he implemented these different styles and just read through his story. I think these are really cool to kind of look at and be inspired by. So I will give you guys the link for this. You guys can dig into this a little bit different, but it's kind of cool. So some of these are definitely composited too, for sure. But each, you know, they have each of these photographers listed and then you can read more about them. So like, you know, you want to read more about DEA, the new face of social media, just click on read more. And I'll give you this link in announcements, but very cool. Just to kind of see where the story behind the shots they are, you know, their style and what they do is kind of cool. This guy here, Martin. With some really cool composited ads here. So, oh, here's a really cool shot. From a different camera view angle. But yeah, so I'll give you that link. You can definitely check it out and be inspired by what you see. Any questions about what we have reviewed so far? And this is, you know, a review because you guys will be taking that quiz. So make sure that you guys are reading through your media sources too, your supplemental videos that are in the media section, forum, I should say. and just kind of making sure you're up to date with all the videos that are in there, because a lot of the quiz questions will come from that as well. No questions. I have a short video here I wanted to play. It's kind of a commercial photography techniques. Wake up, Lily. And I thought, we could watch this and be inspired by some of these techniques, maybe for your final project, or just see how people have done it for their, the ads that they have designed. This is Tips by Joey Lawrence. So let's go ahead and take a look at this, and we can talk about it once it's finished here. Get some coffee and wake up, right?
Hello, everybody out there on the internet. I'm Joey Lawrence, the photographer. Originally, I'm from Ontario, Canada, and now I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of cool shoots throughout my career. And today we talked about it on the Mark Silver Show. So make sure you check it out.
Welcome to the Mark Silver Show, Advancing Your Photography, where we bring you tips from remarkable photographers about how to take photographs you love. Joey, thanks for inviting us to Studio City.
Thanks, Mark.
For advancing your photography. Hey, tell me about your approach to photography and the type of work you really love to do.
My work is in the commercial world.
Yeah.
Okay, so I shoot a lot of advertisements, a lot of things in movie and television, musicians, and my personal work is kind of like fine art portraiture around the world.
When it comes to getting a shot, what are some of the key things that you use?
In my personal work, it's actually quite slow. So I'm talking about my personal work where I travel around and make portraits of people. A lot of the times, the people that I photograph aren't used to being photographed, so I have to take it really slow. So sometimes when I'm photographing, when I'm going somewhere, maybe I don't take a picture for a day, maybe a week, and just get people comfortable with me being there. I never hide the fact that I'm a photographer, but it's the simple things like learning somebody's name. Like that's pretty simple, but it helps break down barriers. You get in with people, you get them cool around you, and then after that, you can start taking pictures. Because when I travel and take pictures, I want to get the people excited about making an image. So one motto that I kind of live by is that my images are a collaboration between the subject and myself. So we kind of work on pictures together, and because of that, I think you get much better pictures.
You get a collaborative.
Yeah, I mean, it just gets people comfortable. Like, for example, I might ask them, what's a place that they find beautiful, and I'll take them there and make a portrait there, so they get interested in what I'm doing. And of course, that mutual thing makes a good photograph.
Cool. And how about your approach to commercial photography?
Commercial photography, I mean, I have a very similar mindset as when I'm traveling. The only thing is we have deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, the way I like to think about my commercial work is I just do like small steps at a time. So if we do have time to pre-light, then I build things one step at a time. So when I'm traveling, my personal work, sometimes I use one light. Commercial work, it can be like 20 lights. It just all depends on the look that I'm going for. So if I have an idea in my head, then I just try to plant the camera somewhere and then build how the light looks one step at a time until I'm happy with it. Could take one light, maybe it takes 20 lights, it all depends.
And as far as making an image that really has impact, emotional impact, how do you do that?
It's hard, because honestly, I don't think you can really lie too much in the frame. If your subjects trust you and they look at you with trust, then that's going to be depicted in the image always. So if you want to have your image to have an emotional connection with the viewer, then that has to be created when you take the photograph.
How about composition?
Composition, I really like balance in the frame. It doesn't always have to be rule of thirds, but one of the things that I like to do is I like to take really kind of long panoramic images with people in them, and I like to place them in the frame the same way that a lot of old master painters would do, kind of like verticals and horizontals and try to make some kind of balance. Not always on the rule of thirds, but make some kind of balance. It just all depends on your eye, and when you look at the frame, I don't know, it just comes naturally. I don't really think about composition too much. It just happens.
What are some of the emotions you've hit as a photographer?
Well, emotions, I mean, photography has brought me everything, all my life experiences that I've ever had, all my interesting stories were brought because usually I'm looking for a picture. So that's a strong emotion to me. It's like my job is pretty key.
Okay, what advice do you have for photographers who just want to advance and get to that next level?
I think a good starting point is, of course, reading things online. The internet is a resource that wasn't there when a lot of photographers were starting out, and I think it's an amazing tool now.
Yeah.
Going to photographers' workshops, reading a lot of books, and of course experimenting and making mistakes yourself. So setting up funny test shoots with like your neighbors or model friends or whoever, and just testing out things yourself. So maybe you read an article on strobist, and then you want to try it out yourself. You'll try it out, and then maybe you can also go beyond that article and experiment and make a little bit of a mistake and find out what you did. Later, try it again. That's really how you get better.
Joey, you've covered a lot of ground as a photographer, even though you're pretty young. What are some of those key points?
Main things to think about when you look at a picture or when you take a picture is, what is the picture going to say about the subject, and what is it going to say about the photographer who took it? Mm-hmm. Those are the two most important things.
Cool. And how do you really draw out what you're looking for from a subject?
Like I said, it's a collaboration between you and them.
Right.
So if you look at a picture, if I show you my work, there should be two things going on in your head. The first, what does the picture say about the subject? And what does it say about the photographer? So the two are working hand in hand, because the photographer has a single frame to represent the person, and the person's giving themselves for that one frame. So what does it say? It's important.
Joey, any final tips for photographers who just want to get better photographs?
Watch the Mark Silver Show.
Hey, I'm hip with that.
How's that?
Joey, thanks for joining us and for giving us an inside look into your world of photography.
No worries. Thank you.
Be sure to subscribe to our blog now to stay updated on my show.
Okay, so what did you guys think? Pretty interesting information. I saw you guys chatting in the log there. Very young. Good information. Kind of nice general information on how, especially with making your subjects more comfortable. Yeah. And it talks about, about how photography, when you're, especially with portrait shots, you can definitely tell with the subject and how they look, how comfortable they are. So experimentation is key, and even if you're not going to be a photographer, it's kind of neat to know the techniques and experiment, and you just never know. I mean, I've been put in situations, like I said, in my professional career, where I would mention to a publisher or whoever I'm working with, clients, that, hey, I have a semi-professional camera. I've taken photography classes. I can probably try and get you the look that you want. And actually I've shot cover shots for magazines before. So you just never know. You might have a client who doesn't want to spend a lot of money, and you can help them out. And yeah, either a client themselves or your whoever you're working for. Yep. Make them comfy or be eaten. Exactly. All right, you guys. I actually don't have too much to cover. Like I said, this is going to be a shorter session because I did go over a lot of information yesterday. So if you want to go over any information from week 1 to now, if you want to go over any type of review, whether it be photography in general or in the software itself, let me know. If you want to show anything that you've been working on. all good information. Yeah, so just go through your, let's see here. So if you go to your week 4 assessment, I kind of read through all of what is entailed with that in regards to how many questions and all of that. But let me go to my modules here. Go to your, let's see, course media section. I was trying to think of the wording there. I was saying media forum, but go, if you haven't done so yet, go through your course media. It can be found in modules. And there are required videos and readings in here. So if you missed that or you forgot about it, definitely go back and review that before taking your quiz. It's a lot of good information, and it talks about what is covered under each of these. Just good supplemental resources to get you guys through more information that we didn't cover. Okay, hold on one second here. Let me change my view here. Okay, so you want to know about the ISO, which is it basically is measuring the sensitivity of the image sensor. So the lower the number, the less sensitive your camera is to light. We talked about that before. Here, let me get my chat area up here. I'm losing what you guys are saying. Okay, so basically, if you think about it, you have 3 pillars of exposure. You have your shutter speed, your aperture, and your sensitivity. So shutter and aperture are basically their controls for adjusting how much light comes into the camera. Okay, and how much light is needed is determined by the sensitivity of the medium used. So if you're talking about ISO, the normal range is about 200 to 1600. And so you would adjust your ISO based on the lighting situation that you're in, okay? So, when you're talking about, so the lower the number of the ISO, the more light is required. Okay, so if you're around 100 or 200, that's really what you want in most bright situations. Like if you're out in the sunshine and it's high noon, you want that ISO to be 100 or 200. That way you're not getting your photos aren't coming out like blown out. And you can play around with that, raise the ISO, go out into the sunlight, and you'll kind of see how your contrast changes. So each time you double the ISO, so if you, for example, from like 200 to 400, the camera only needs half as much light for that same exposure. Okay, the other important thing that's tied in with the ISO is the amount of noise in the image. So, when in the days of film, when you did 35 millimeter and you used film with the higher ISO values, your images had more visible grain to them. So film grain is what made up that image. So the higher numbers resulted in larger grain, which was more obvious. So, and a lot of people found that as being objectionable, but photographers, we try to like avoid that because the more grain just doesn't look like a good quality image. So you don't really want that digital noise to affect your image. let me pull up here. Real quick, let me pull up maybe an infographic. I think I posted something because I think I don't know about you guys, but I learn a little bit more visually than anything. Let me do a quick search here. Maybe that'll help understand what the ISO is. Okay, so this is a good example. Let me open this up here. Right, yeah. So it almost looks like it's not pixelized, but you can tell it's not sharp, if that makes sense. You can tell there's like a texture to it. All right, let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I found this. This is a little bit more of an easier way to understand, I think, visually what ISO is and how it's linked to aperture and shutter speed in this visual here. So on the left, it's talking about, has the labels ISO, shutter, and aperture. So the low sensitivity to the high sensitivity for the ISO is shown kind of variated through. So you can see when you start on the left, the ISO is 50 and it's not as grainy, but when you go all the way up to the higher number, it's grainier. And then it also shows the shutter speed and how that affects the subject if you're going from a fast shutter speed to a slow shutter speed. And then it also talks about the aperture. I think this is where it gets a little confusing because they all kind of work together. So small aperture, you're playing around with the depth of field as well. Yeah, I think so too. I think this definitely helps. Let me see if there's any other ones here, because I just did a general search. So I just like infographics, I think. Here's one too, might be very helpful. I just think that for visual people like us, we tend to lean towards this type of example, learning a little bit more. Okay, so here is the ISO scale. These are the standard settings. The range available to you will depend on your camera. So for it, it has from the low to the high number of your ISO. So the low would be good for landscape. So ISO would be between 50 to 200. Low ISOs give the best quality, and using a tripod will mean you don't have to worry about camera shake. And as you go up, sports, so the ISO would be good between 200 and 400. Key to sports is capturing the action. Noise is secondary, so use whatever ISO you need if the light is low. And then you go kind of up to astrophotography, so the 800 to 1600 ISO. This allows a shorter exposure to reduce object movement across the sky. So if you've ever seen that type of a photography method, it's kind of neat. That's how you would adjust that for that. Landscape sports, candle night, pet people, etc. Yeah. So the next one's the low light candid. And I believe, yeah, so your settings might be different on yours. There's the candlelight here. The most important things are to get sharp shots and preserve the atmosphere. On this one, 3200. Twilight wildlife, nocturnal. So you have all of that. And look in your manual. Your manual should definitely have, I'm trying to find another example here. We'll definitely show you kind of maybe some examples as well. Right? If you don't have a manual, an actual printed one, that's funny because, what are manuals, right? There probably will be a PDF of some sort that you can find online. So that's kind of where I find a lot of my manuals because I lose them all. And then, reverting back to that, right? Like, who does that? I have to, for sure, on my camera because there's so many different options on it. Okay, here's another one. Kind of, and this is something you could print out. and have in your bag or, you know, somewhere close to you so you can pull it out and figure out, you know, what's the best for the situation that you're in. So this one's kind of nice because it's a nice quick scale of ISO ranges here, and it tells you what's best for what. So it goes from 100 to 1600, and it shows you kind of the noise warning in between, where it gets to the point where, yeah, you might have some noise within your visual noise within your image. Okay, so all good things to, you know, take a screenshot of or keep in a folder, print out, so that you are clear on what all this is, because it does get kind of overwhelming, especially when you're shooting. It can get a little bit overwhelming for sure, but I usually look up infographics because I think that they're a little easier to follow. So that might be something that you'll want to look into if you have questions about whatever, aperture, shutter speed, exposure. There's some really cool examples on there. Any other questions, or did I clear that up? Did that make sense? Okay. Yeah, good question for sure. Experiment. Go out, you know, take the full range, go outside, take the full range, change your ISO just to see what happens. And then you'll kind of start understanding, okay, this is where I need to be for this certain situation of the lighting, especially going outside, because you just never know. The lighting changes, you know, hour by hour. So, all right, did you want to share any work or have any other questions? Okay, Lily, you want to share your stuff? Okay, cool. All right, let me get this all ready here. I'm going to unmute you, and then you can share your screen.
My dog's growling.
How do you find all your files on your desktop?
I don't know. Oh, here it is. It's actually pretty organized.
Yeah. I mean, it does look like it is organized, just a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think? What did you think when you flopped that around and made these changes? Do you think it looks a lot more effective?
Yeah, I like the eyes looking towards the words, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. I like the changes that you made. I think it looks less crammed on the right side with the information there.
Mm.
Helps. Forever home.
How about the script?
Yeah, I think that works. It definitely looks, it's not as dated looking. I like the signature scripty style. Yeah, looks good. I like where the logo is. I think that looks really good too. And that's something that would go good, you know, thinking beyond just the web ad. And you kind of have to think like this as a designer. You might not be doing, and a photographer, you might not be doing this on other applications, but you may have a poster and you might have another advertisement that you're doing for a printed piece. So that whole banner with the green vertical paws, almost like the pattern of the paws with this logo, would look really well, and other pieces could tie in those other pieces together going forward. So it would make it a good unification element. Yeah, it would be a good postcard. Okay, so the only other thing, just real small little revision, would be pulling together the adoption, and it's for them, just pull it just slightly more together, the letting, which is the space in between the two. Just pull it just a little bit closer together, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Because
So
it's almost like it's supposed to be read together, but there's so much space in between.
So pull it down a little bit then.
Yep, I could pull the word adoption just down a little bit closer to that, and I think you got it.
Okay.
Great job.
Thanks.
It's always kind of neat to see those changes in action going back to what you had before and then comparing it to what you have now. And kind of understanding that process of why you did what you did, the changes that you made. So make sure you're doing that. You know, and you'll do that all in your career. When you get out of school and you get a job, you'll be looking back at your portfolio and learning the mistakes that you made, you know, and kind of understanding, oh yeah, I can't believe that's where I was back then. And like, you learn from that. You learn from that process. Yep. Good job. Thanks for sharing, Lily. Great job. And Marla, did you have anything you wanted to show, or are you good to go? I'm kind of excited. This is the exciting part for me, to see what you guys all come up with. So you already turned it in? Okay. Did you want to show it, or it's up to you? I haven't peeked in the grade book in regards to that. Okay. We'll wait for you. Let me know when you're ready. That way, if you need to make any additional, you know, changes, you can do so, and why not? Okay, Marla, let me know when you're ready. Okay, I'm gonna unmute you, and then I'll stop sharing. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I went ahead and changed the front a little bit.
That looks good.
And I did sharpen this up. I added a drop shadow to it so it would stand out a little bit more, as well as this part.
Why is it so, like,
You know, I don't know, because everything is on there fine, and it doesn't look like this when you see the the part I turned in.
Okay, do me a really big favor and go up to your view settings. Maybe that's what's going on.
That could be. Okay, that little window keeps popping. Okay, let's just move it. There we go. Okay, normal. And preview.
Okay, so your settings that I'm talking about is up on, and I can't see. Oh, go under view and go to display performance or screen mode. It's under one of those. Might be screen mode or display. Yeah, go to high quality. There you go. See how it got a little bit less pixelated looking?
Yes, yeah, because this here, I had corrected that with the pixelation.
Click on that real quick, just that logo, Mark. Okay, double click on it. Okay, so it's blown up 113%. That's what's going on. So go up to go to view, or I'm sorry, window, and go to links. I just want to see how you place that in there. That's a ping file. Okay. So what I would say to you is go back to your Illustrator file before you saved it out as a ping file and make that mark just a little bigger. And that way you won't have any weird, you blew it up over 100%. So that's probably why it's not as clear as it could be.
Okay.
So when you make it bigger in Illustrator, that you won't have an issue with that. You'll be actually under the percentage, like under 100%.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that looks a lot better in regards to having the name like look more unified with the logo.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe try to make it a little bit smaller than mark so that it's not, or pull it up just slightly from the bottom edge. It's getting close to the trim edge.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that looks good. Okay, let's see the back side. Alrighty, let's get growing. Can you make that white box just a little bit like on the top there, just a little opaque?
Mm-hmm.
And balance the bottom part out, because see how close the copy is to the bottom edge of that white box? Just pull that white box down just a little bit. Where the top information is with the hours.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want that a little bit longer then?
Yeah, you'll need to ungroup it. It looks like it's grouped.
Right. Okay.
So see the space under the hours it's almost like there's no margin space.
Okay.
And then I don't know, just play around with that. Do you need it to be all white? Can it be like 90% opaque, that box?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, it looks good. And then you have a black box behind there. I don't know, it's peeking.
Yeah. I don't know what that was. It didn't show up earlier. So it's on the one I turned in, it's not in that. Because I have my because I did my brief, because that's how you wanted it, the brief.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And all together. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the photos that we took.
Nice.
See, it doesn't show up on this. That's what's really weird. The black box isn't showing up.
What could have happened is you might have saved it out as a PDF and then went back to your AI file and did something by accident. Putting the black box in there and then saved that. So it wasn't showing up on the PDF, but it was in your AI file. I've done that before.
Okay.
I've done it before. Like, you go back to the original file and you do something by accident and then you're like, wait a second. Or
okay.
But it looks really good. I think just kind of doing a little bit of those revisions, and I know you kind of already submitted, so you're probably thinking, oh no. But it's always good. There's always room for improvement. And
yeah, considering today's Thursday and I have 2 more days.
Right.
And
and just make sure that you're showing the logo in the same exact way on both sides. And what I mean by that is go up and let me see how that logo is, and then go up to the front of the postcard. Does it look different in any way? Yeah, see how the logo changes. So it looks like 2 different logos. The typeface is different, or the uppercase, lowercase. So whatever you use, I would use the front one and just use that one for the back. Yeah.
Keep it consistent.
Yep. Okay. Because what will happen is you're showing it in 2 different ways. People won't recognize the brand because there's a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
So the more consistent you can be, the better. So you don't have that disconnect.
Yeah, I think what might have happened was it couldn't find, but no, I did them. I saved them as created outlines with all of my, because it was one of them that it didn't have on file, so I created outlines with all of my font.
Oh, okay.
So when, like embedding it only wouldn't have the problem with it.
Oh, okay. So you'll need to go back and change the letters if you're using. I like the logo on the front of the card. So if you use that logo and you put it on the back, you're going to make the words green, the letters.
Mm-hmm.
You'll need to make sure you have that typeface not outlined.
Right.
Or I
Right,
mean, they can be outlined. You just apply the color to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Looks good though. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I liked it. So that was my before picture, and all I did was kind of take out the car.
Okay. Very good.
So
All the extra stuff going on that's not needed in the picture. Very good.
exactly, and that's all. And then the other one, I didn't do anything to it. Other than crop it, just choose a section of it to use. So
yeah, I think that works really well. The depth of field is perfect, and I think that works really well for the backside of your postcard.
Yeah, I like the way the light hits it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Very nice.
Thank you. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
You guys like this class?
Yeah.
Is it a nice break from what you had before?
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And I know Lily, her and I were talking about it. It's like, oh, why does it have to quit? Why does it have to
Just 2 more weeks, right?
Yeah.
I always say I'd like to have 2 more weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was one that was it brought out the creativeness,
Mm-hmm.
and gave me a completely different view and something to think about, because before we always just go to stock photo instead of even thinking about grabbing our own photos for the different things that we do in class.
Exactly. Yep.
So,
and even compositing your images to create even more unique, for other projects, more unique concepts.
mm-hmm.
So it's kind of opening up a new world for you guys to think about new method and
exactly.
good.
New tool in our box.
That's right. And we can all use more tools.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, it was a pleasure having you guys in class, and I'm just excited to see this is kind of I like this part, just seeing what everybody comes up with and how you've progressed, seeing your progression. I get inspired by you guys, so this is my favorite part, even though it's the final class. But I hope to see you guys in future classes. I've been teaching at Independence for over 5 years, so I've taught the full spectrum for the most part. And so I might see you guys in future classes if you're still, still here. So, but definitely keep in touch. I will be placing my contact information, LinkedIn information, if you want to stay in touch in that way. So kind of keep a heads up and announcements. When you guys graduate, September, you said, Marla? That's coming up. Oh my goodness, that's exciting. That'll go quick. Okay, December for you. Yeah, that'll go quick. You guys enjoy this time. I miss going to school. I don't miss the stress, but I do miss being able to learn new things and, be in an environment with other students and just having that time to experiment. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed this class. Please keep in touch. And class isn't over yet, so if you have any questions before final deadline, reach out to me. I'm always here. I want you guys to all succeed in this class, so I am on your side, and don't feel like you're bugging me. Okay? All right. Wonderful, guys. Thanks for sharing your work and for coming in, and I'll be seeing you on the discussion boards. All right, guys. Have a great day. And good luck with your doggies. Yes. All right. See you guys.